All life requires some form of energy to survive. And if that energy is at an adequate threshold, then survival occurs. When it's below that threshold, whether it's oxygen, food, love and belonging, the development of talents, when any of our needs, when any life form's needs, but when any of our needs is below a certain threshold, we are dying slowly or rapidly. It can take a few seconds or it can take a couple of decades, but there is a descent, a deterioration of the cohesive pattern that is an identity, a pattern in human terms of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. Now, this threshold, this point of having one's needs met, uncertainly, certainly, and abundantly, is a very important continuum, because up here we have abundant life with security. Here we have the threshold, and down here we have scarcity. We have not enough. Now, in the human evolutionary tale, from the beginning of time until today, there have been regions, different peoples, who have not had enough to survive, to meet their human needs. But the human needs in their hierarchy are to survive, to experience the security of survival, the certainty of survival, love and belonging, self-esteem, the development of our gifts, the development of our abilities, the bringing of those abilities out into our community, and creating abundance, abundance for the community and abundance for ourselves through the delivering of our gifts, and then to become part of something greater than ourselves, to become part of something greater than ourselves. And that last need of all human beings offers a clue in its sequence, because the need to become part of something bigger than ourselves does not present itself in the hierarchy of human needs until abundance is experienced. It's on the other side of abundance that we experience transcendence, the growing out of the self-absorption, of narcissism, of self-centeredness, of the limited identity. I am the person who thinks this, who feels this, who does this, who says this, and who has this body. This is me, that's not me. And it is scientifically obvious that we are a part of something bigger than the limited identity. And although the cult does a great deal to obscure our interconnectivity with the ecology out of which we emerge and of which we are a part, one need only hold one's nose and mouth for a few minutes to realize how interdependent we are, that we're generating with carbon dioxide the food for the living plants around us, and we're receiving. We're breathing in and we're breathing out. We're breathing in and we're breathing out in unison with the underlying ecology, which is also breathing out what we breathe in and breathing in what we breathe out. It is a shared breath with the underlying ecology, whether that breath is in liquid, whether it is in oxygen, whether it is in solids. there is a shared breath. The feces of a mammal is the food of a tree. And the feces of a tree, whether it's a mango, whether it's a banana, the feces of a tree is the food for a human being. It's a breath at different levels of intensity. So, what happens at this point of security of meeting one's needs? When you and the people around you have developed enough talent, enough gifts to generate, to co-create abundance, because it takes flow. If you develop the skill of baking, for example, the abundance occurs in the exchange of energy, because you give the bread and the pastries to the community, and the community in a monetary system gives you a symbol of value, but that facilitates flow with something that you don't have. And specialization, which is one of life's great algorithms, specialization, means that you give better bread as someone who has an art for developing bread. You give better bread than someone who makes it every now and again in their spare time. But they give you something that's more valuable than if you were starting from scratch. When you specialize, the transcendent organism of culture begins to emerge. It looks like you're individuals, but this person is running the trucks, and this person is repairing the trucks, and this person is building the trucks, and this person is baking the bread that gets put on the trucks, and this person is buying the bread and distributing the bread and nourishing the organism of a people. Now, the limited consciousness of an individual stays limited until that moment of personal and community abundance. It's often someone over 50 in that hierarchy of meeting human needs. I need to survive. That's the need of an infant. In a sociopathic culture, that need to survive does not disappear. You still meet people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s feeling primarily the need to survive because you have a low level of competency. You don't have abundance around survival. And so there's fear, and with fear comes self-absorption. So one doesn't move into that focus on something bigger than self as an individual until after the blossoming, the opening in this hierarchical bud of human needs, in this flowering of human needs, until after survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, the development of gifts, the bringing those gifts into the world, and then becoming part of something greater than ourselves. It's that last seventh step that is the transcendent step, the step that moves beyond the self to focus on the whole, on something bigger than self, to focus on the other, on a larger sense of self, to be a part of a culture, part of a community, and to contribute at a cultural and at a community level. So this threshold of abundance, there's not enough, there's enough, and then there's abundance. That threshold is an incredibly important moment in an individual's life because it's the moment when they become part of something greater than the individual ego. There's a sense of belonging to something bigger. And that is a human need that dawns at that moment of abundance. Now, the same process, the same dynamic of there's not enough down here, there's just enough here, and then there's abundance up here, occurs at a cultural, national, and also a species level. Because for much of Earth's history, a certain demographic of human beings has not had enough to survive, to be secure in their survival, has not had enough love and belonging. This can be an individual family member. This can be, a certain percentage of a community or town. This is a certain number of countries in the globe. It's a fractal pattern. And so there are parts of each one of us, there are parts of psyche, self, that do not have enough. If you're born on a farm and there's some part of you that wants to play music, but there's no instruments and there's no time and there's no teachers in your vicinity, then can your musician survive? Is it secure in that survival? Does this part that wants to come out have a sense of abundance or of helpless scarcity? We're never going to be able to afford this and this. There's never going to be enough time. Then there's the cultural overlay of humiliation, of, dad doesn't see any point in it. Mom thinks it's a waste of time. People don't get it, right? And so in that environment, there is a certain part of us that starves. There's a certain part of every man and every woman's femininity that isn't valued, that isn't nurtured. If you want to become one of the best mothers in the country, you could be in the top 5. But because you're in a feminine domain, in a chauvinistic cult, you will not get a penny for being in the top 5 mothers in the country. You will not get a penny. Whether you're a man or a woman doing the mothering, you will not get a penny. You will not receive any classes. As you move towards this mothering ideal, you will get 0 training in this cult. You watch your parents, not particularly competent. You go to school, you learn nothing about parenting in kindergarten, middle school, high school. Go to college, nothing about parenting. You get a job. Just leave your personal stuff at home is the commandment of the professional. The ultimate professional leaves their personal things at the door, dissociates from family, etc., in order to be the competent robot, the one that gets the job done. So you're not going to get any encouragement at work for being the best mother in the country. And having received 0 validation, 0 training, and not a penny for being the best mother in the country, you then get 0 recognition. Because you will read about the Forbes 400 list. Those are the 400 richest people. And you will learn about the top influencers and the fast and upcoming entrepreneurs and the fastest growing companies. So where's your list of the best mothers in the country? It doesn't exist. In a chauvinistic cult, it doesn't occur to a chauvinist that doing something feminine would be as valuable as building the tallest building. Oh, there will be a list of the tallest buildings. There will be a list of the richest people. There will be a list of the most dangerous gangs. There will be a list of the most popular politicians. There will be a list of the lawyers who won the most cases. But the single most important thing for the species that one could imagine, competently taking an infant and bringing a talented adult into being, who needs a list for that? It's only the single most important skill in the history of the species. So, of course, it's underpaid, not trained, and not noted. There isn't even an agreed framework of what success would look like, and it's not measured. The outcomes are not measured, the talents are not measured, and it's not noted. Now, you'll get gossip and hearsay, which is generally fine for feminine terrain in a chauvinistic cult. Relationships, gossip and hearsay, the 10 things. You know, if you're an intelligent male and you sit in the grocery stand and look at where women are getting their guidance on how to be a competent lover, the 10 things that every man wants, you look through it, I don't want that, I don't want that, I want to... You realize that it doesn't matter that relationships are founded on the gossip and misinformation of the tabloids, because relationships are feminine. And so you're just not going to show up in any meaningful way anywhere in the cult for being the single most valuable, the single most competent mother, or father for that matter, in the entire country, in the world for that matter. You could be the best father or mother in the world, and nobody would know, because in a parentally illiterate species, where 95% of the people don't know what good parenting looks like, they can't recognize or distinguish a good parent from a bad parent. Because when you have that level of ignorance and incompetence, studies show that the majority of people who are ignorant believe that they are competent and even above average, when they are in fact so incompetent they do not have the competency to measure whether they are competent or not. And that's really the state that we're in as a cult, as a culture, as a country, as a civilization, and to a large sense, to a large extent, as a species. So that's where we are. Now, childhood being incredibly vulnerable, incredibly easy to be traumatized in or during, in a systemically incompetent, uneducated, and unscientific protocol of creating and raising children, not just to grown bodies, we've pretty much got that down for the most part, but human beings raised to be adults, to be unique, intelligent life forms that are more intelligent emotionally, mentally, physically than their creators. That's the sign of evolution. That's the sign of competent parenting. That's not being measured either. How effective what is an adult? You know, in a cult like our own, we know what an iPhone is, but we don't know what an adult is. Well, I mean, that speaks to a level of ignorance that is so deep that we don't understand our own ignorance, because that's fine for a great number of people. I know what an iPhone 7 is compared to an iPhone 6. The screen is like this, but I don't know what a competent parent is. And I don't know how to grade the different levels of competency in different arenas of parenting. And I'm so incompetent that I don't realize that that's a big deal, a huge deal. One could say the single most important deal for the future of our planet, for the future of our own species, is, do we have the skill to produce enough adults to transcend the narcissistic self-centeredness of the child and adolescent, which we produce in great abundance psychologically? People in a childlike, self-absorbed state, people in an adolescent, self-absorbed state that just happen to have grown bodies and don't really know what the difference is between adolescence and adulthood. Now, in a state of inadequacy, in a state of scarcity, scarcity of survival, scarcity of security of survival, scarcity of love and belonging, scarcity of self-esteem, scarcity around the ability to develop unique gifts and abilities and bring them into the community in a way that creates mutual abundance, high levels, a feeling of abundance, that I have way more than I need, and I'm giving way more than I'm taking. That's abundance. When you have a win-win dynamic between an individual and their cultural and natural ecology, where both the ecology is better off because of the existence of the human being, and the community is better off because of the existence of that human being applying those talents, and that the human being is much better off because they're in the community operating within that exchange of energy and sharing their gifts than if they were on a desert island. I mean, obviously, if you are the best chef in the world and you can produce 3,000 scones an hour, if nobody's there to eat them, if nobody's there to build the stoves, if no one's there to refill the gas, it doesn't matter. You don't experience abundance. The abundance comes in the synergy of multiple competent people exchanging energy in a specialized form that creates a certain synergy of abundance, more abundance than any one could create alone by a large measure. And so when that level is there, there is a tremendous shift in the operating system that's governing the paradigm of consciousness. And let's talk about scarcity and fear, because to a large extent, whether it's Americans or Westerners, to a large extent, we are living in scarcity and in fear. So what does scarcity look like? Well, first of all, we see people in our vicinity who are not surviving. They lost their home. They lost their company. They lost their job. They're not sure they can pay their medical bills. Pretty basic survival, right? So when in the probability field for you and the people around you, it's not certain that you and the people around you will survive. When that's not certain, you do not have a sense of abundance, obviously. Now, when you are surviving, you're not seeing people dying in your vicinity, and you're not reading and watching it in the news. This person died of this, and this one was raped, and this was shot. That's not certainty of survival. People are not surviving. Then comes the security of survival. That's when you don't see people around you being hurt. You have security of survival. Because if you use any rationality and you look over at your neighbor and, what happened to him? Why is he moving? Well, he lost his job. They couldn't pay the medical bills and the landlord is evicting them. What happened to So? Well, he committed suicide because the debts kept mounting. He got family pressure and he couldn't stand to go back to a job that he hated. And what about this? And on the news, this person did this, and this mother strangled their babies and stuff. We're not dealing with security of survival. Because if you're surrounded with data points that speak of scarcity of survival, scarcity of security, these are two of the most basic human needs. And then you have scarcity of love and belonging. So-and-so is so depressed. Why? Because they feel amazingly loved, because they love themselves totally and completely and feel loved by family members, their job, their clients. They feel loving and they feel loved, and so they got depressed. They feel lonely because they were loved so much that, everywhere they looked, they saw people who understood them. Do we even know what love is? Do you know what love is? What would make your partner feel completely and totally loved? Do they know that? You see, no woman that I've ever asked anywhere on the planet has had a ready answer to that question. It is the single most important question in a romantic relationship that you want to have abundance is, could you give me 40 things that I could do, that I could say, the ways that I could be with you. 40 detailed scripts that if I brought you these foods in bed, or if I helped you understand these feelings, that if I listened to you talking about this and responded in this way, that you would feel completely loved and supported. I don't know. So it's not surprising that if no one I've ever met has a ready answer to that question, that hardly anyone randomly stumbles upon feelings of complete fullness of loving themselves and being loved. On a 1 to 10 scale, how loved do you feel? On a 1 to 10 scale, how much do you love yourself? Which parts of yourself? And how do you define love? We have so much misinformation and cross-wiring around love that many people are terrified if the word is spoken. Now, you're dealing with something off when love is theoretically this wonderful thing. And when someone says, I love you, people get panicky. People say, this is too much. I don't want to deal with this. What are you talking about? What is it you don't want to deal with? Do you not want to deal with love, or do you not want to deal with being molested, being raped, and told this is because I love you? Do you not want to be used and told this is what couples do? What is it that you don't want that makes falling in love or being in love a statistically unpleasant experience, such that you would feel uncomfortable getting anywhere near the word? It's not love that makes you feel that way. It is abuse and incompetence that has been associated with those words. But if you don't know the difference between love and abuse and incompetence and cannot spot it competently, you don't even know what love is, let alone love and belonging. And if, okay, let's say your boss loves your productivity because you're making them lots of money in a cult that values money more than human beings. So they love how efficient you are at closing the sale and this and that and the other. But if you have a face defect, let's say boiling water scalds your face, number one, and you can no longer make sales. That cute little face that made so many sales suddenly is a liability. Well, did your boss love your face's ability to seduce the customer? Or did they love you as a human being, right? So how wide is the love? Is there any love? What is it? And how wide is it? And then once you know how many arenas you could feel loved, I feel loved as a friend, I feel loved as a father, I feel seen, and I have a conscious definition. Okay, you've got all that. And then 1 to 10, how are you doing in each of those areas? By how many people? Of whom, how many know a definition of love? And does your spouse know your definition of love? Does your spouse, your partner, your best friend, your parent, your dog, and let's face it, in many cases, in a psychologically illiterate culture, a dog is more competent at producing feelings of love and belonging in its isolated members than other human beings are. Because the dog is following its old instincts, and the cult has been programmed to dissociate from their feelings and instincts in order to be cultured, i.e. less emotional, whereas a dog or whatever is, expressive of their feelings. So if you've been trained to be unemotional, then how can you express your feelings as well as a dog can? So you may get more love and belonging from your dog than from your cultured, cult-programmed family members, business associates, and friends, all of whom will be horrified if you spontaneously express emotion with the same integration of heart, mind, and body as a dog. So if dogs are where there is integrity, spontaneity, depth of feeling, affection, loyalty, we'll hang out with the dog any day. It's an intelligent move in a psychologically illiterate culture. So, love and belonging is very shaky. It's a 1 for a lot of people on a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being optimal love and belonging. Sometimes gets up to a 3 for really, and of course you can stumble into it with sheer chance and spontaneity. I mean, if you have no training as a chess player, but are just told you get to move a piece somewhere on the board, you play with 100 people and make 100 moves, you're going to get some of them right. You may even win a chess game out of sheer dumb luck without a single formal hour of competent chess training. And you may even make certain people may make other people feel loved and a sense of belonging out of sheer dumb luck. If you just hang out with enough people, whatever it is that you're programmed to do may coincide with whatever it is that someone else is programmed to call love, and then you do that thing, and it's like, oh, you love me. Whereas you did that exact same thing with 100 other people, and this person thought you were too intense, and this person thought you were scary, and the exact same thing didn't make them feel loved. So what is it? So you just meander through life at such a level of competency that you're bound to run into someone from time to time who will project something on you, often without telling you, and then they'll feel loved as long as you don't ruin their projection. And then you do something and they say, I thought I knew you, meaning they had their projection, and now you've just shattered it because you've acted inconsistent with the script they've made up. And told themselves that you will do based on the fact that they wanted you to do that. And now you didn't follow their script, and so they are betrayed. Well, that is the level of competency that we're in today. I've interviewed couples all over, different places in the world. Almost none of them know any of the common sense answers to basic questions that I or anyone else could have asked them anytime in the last 30 years. Women tell me all the time, I've never been asked that once in my life. These are 50-year-old women. What does that say about a cult? That the most important questions have never been asked by anyone, let alone asked every day by the people most important to ask them. And so we're at a low level of, love and belonging. That, again, in many cases is so low that we don't even have the competency to measure it, because part of competency would be knowing what love is and then developing the skill to measure it. That would be very, very basic levels of competency. And you ask people for a cogent definition of what love is that has sense with itself. And do you mean this? Well, that's not, I know it, but I'm not, I can't put it into words. And so, of course, you can't measure it. And then if you can't measure it in yourself, clearly, can you measure it in your partner? So do you have any idea how loved your partner feels by this behavior and that behavior that you exhibit? I mean, these are very, very basic things. And so we're in scarcity around love and belonging. We're also in scarcity around self-esteem. Because when you have high levels of fear, and all fear is related to pain. So if you are afraid of anything, what you are afraid of is experiencing pain in the area that you are afraid. If loneliness is very painful to you, and you don't want to feel lonely, the pain you have felt or do feel or are worried about feeling in loneliness may lead you to not want to feel pain. You're afraid of loneliness because it's painful, because you want to not be alone, but you are alone. There's a big gap. That's what pain is. Pain is the gap between what you want over here and where you are over here. The gap is pain. And when that pain gets too big, when the gap gets too big, then you feel afraid of the pain because it's so intense. It's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You don't know what to do with it, so you're afraid of the message. Pain is just saying the gap between what you want and where you are is getting bigger. I want this, and I'm here. Now I'm here. That's bigger. I don't know how to respond to make it smaller. And so I'm afraid I don't want to hear it. I don't know how to respond. Please go away. Don't tell me that it's even worse. It's even worse. Oh, my goodness. After all I've done, and I thought it would be this and this. Now it's even further apart. Oh, my goodness. Please don't tell me about it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to think about it. Why? Because I'm so incompetent that I am afraid I cannot solve the pain. I cannot respond to it, except by doing things that add more pain. Oh, let's have another bottle of vodka, right? That'll clearly bring you closer to the person you want to be. It depends, Maybe you're shy and getting drunk, you feel like you can be outgoing a little bit, so you're a little bit closer, and then you need a little bit more and a little bit more. But ultimately, most chemical dependencies leave you worse off in the very area they promised to help you. So then the pain is even bigger, right? I talked with a woman today, and she's slurring her throat and talking about how successful she is, and it's so clear that she's drunk. And I'm wondering if it's too painful for her to acknowledge that she's drunk, if part of her cessation of pain is coming from pretending that this is wonderful, that you can be this drunk and nobody would notice, or, and she talked about how competent she was. And I'm thinking, you're so incompetent, you can't measure your own competence. But is your pain at a level where you could bear to hear that? Because if it's already that's too much pain to deal with, then you need another drink, which just makes you further and further away from the person you want to be, in this case, competent and together and all of that. So it's pain. And self-esteem. Do you know what your values are? Your ideals are? You see, because when there's lots of pain and scarcity around survival and security, you have prostitution. Prostitution, the continuum of prostitution, is doing anything out of pain, out of avoiding pain and fear of not having enough, fear of not surviving. Doing something you don't want to do because you are afraid that if you don't please this person, in the Harvey Weinstein case, he would destroy their career, and that would be the threat, right? Don't ruin your career over this. Give me what you don't want to do, and then I will pull a few strings so that in a scarce reality, because famous actresses are a very, very, very scarce reality. How many famous actresses are there? 100? In the entire world, 200? 300? Can you think of 50 off the top of your head that is a famous actress that's still alive? It's a very narrow pool if you're talking, 7 billion people down to 300. I want to be a famous actress. You want to be 1 in 100 million. That's a pretty tough bet. So how badly do you want it? Will you do this for me that you don't want to do? Will you do that for me that you don't want to do? Will you keep the secret I don't want you to tell? Because if you'll do all of these things, then I'll get you a key into that scarce terrain. Now, you are probably not going to be a famous actress. Even if Harvey Weinstein puts you into one of his movies, because if you're not very good at pulling off a $200 million movie, making enough people want to come and see you, that they'd rather see you over all the other movies, of which there are millions, that they'd rather see your movie rather than all the other movies. On this day, that's a tough thing to pull off. And if you can't pull it off, then nobody will invest in Harvey Weinstein if he keeps spending $200 million on movies that people won't go to see. So not everyone can be, even if they're nepotism and they're all the right, and they slept with the right people and all this, not everyone can be a person that more people want to go and see, just to see them. And it's even harder when you're a prostitute, because most people are drawn to a certain level of authenticity, to a certain level of energy. But the more you do something that you don't want to do in order to get something that you think you need to be valuable, because why on earth would anyone want to be harassed for the rest of their life by hordes of people in an emotionally and relationally illiterate culture in which you can guarantee that the majority of your fans do not understand courtesy or what it's like to be famous, and are much too self-absorbed about getting your autograph to make them feel good than they are to worry about whether or not you want another Sunday to be invaded by strangers. Like, who would want to be famous except someone who feels that they have no value inside based on the way they were treated in childhood, who feels that they have no value inside, but they see value being projected onto these famous people. And so they say, I want some of that. The only way I'm going to ever be valuable is to be like Marilyn Monroe, or I'll be like this or be like that. I want to be like that. I want it so much that I'm going to lie about it, cheat about it, not do this, not do that, become this, change my hair, do this, put on this act, so that I can get in front of people, so that I can be a famous actress. I mean, that's not, what I want for you. It's not what I would want for my best friend. Be a famous person that people will just come up to on the street and, hey, could you do this and do this and do this? I don't want it for myself. I would not enjoy that. So many people, most famous people, do not enjoy the bother, but they may enjoy telling themselves and reassuring themselves that they really are something if they can bring in $300 million of box office hits to see them, with them as the star. I must be something. I don't feel like anything. I feel like I'm farther from myself than I've ever been because I had to do this and have to do this, and my fans don't want to hear about it. My fans don't want to hear about how insecure and desperate I feel. Of course you feel insecure and desperate. You've been busily trying to be someone else to please other people with the premise that you didn't have any value. If you felt, I like who I am and I don't really care what other people think about me, most likely that is not going to take you into the choreographed stereotype of a famous actress. And so the more you have scarcity, in this case you start with the parental scarcity of delivering worth and value to children. Many children in million-dollar homes feel utterly worthless. You're worth $1 million. Yeah, that's on the outside, but I feel worthless. I feel worthless. I know the house is worth $1 million, but I feel worthless. Why? Well, my parents put more energy into the house than they did into me. They're always telling me to tone it down a bit. They're always suggesting that I'm in their way because they've got to go out and make money to pay for the house. So if I was the house, sure, I would feel like I was worth $1 million. But I'm not the house. I'm the human being who's always in the way of my parents making it what? Money. To pay for the house, to pay for the shoes. Oh, they're valuable. The house is valuable. The car is valuable. My education, I'm told over and over again, is valuable. But I who I am, my feelings, my feminine self, worthless. Nothing but a nuisance. So I don't feel self-esteem. I don't have my own ideals. I'm trying to get validation and get people to fill that void because I believed my parents in all the looks they gave me and all the things they said, which told me in 1,000 different ways that I was a distraction, a side project on the way of creating the perfect family so that they could look good. And if I didn't make them look good, well, then I was a disappointment and resented. So I don't have any value, but if I can make them look good, that has value. Me putting on an act has value, but me has no value. So there's tens of millions of American children who feel worthless in a cult where they watch 10,000 messages that who they are is less important than some other agenda in the cult and in the family system. So self-esteem is sublimated, earning respect for oneself, sublimated in order to pursue value from other people. And the more you're denied innate value as an infant, as a child, when one desperately needs that, the more one seeks that through prostitution. It's a job. It pays the bills. It keeps me off the street. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be here with you. I don't want to be doing this therapy session. I don't want to be building these widgets. I could care less about selling insurance. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you get it or not. I'm doing this, for money. That's prostitution. The more scarcity there is around survival and security, love and belonging, the higher the prostitution level is. How much of what you're doing, what you're thinking, how much of your identity, your pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, has anything to do with what you want to be doing right now more than anything else? And how much of it comes out of fear? Like, if I don't do this, then this won't happen. And if that won't happen, that doesn't happen. If that happens, oh my gosh, I could be in massive amounts of pain, viewed as nobody again. Because that's how I feel inside, nobody. And then I'm going to be made to feel that way again. And everyone's going to know that I feel like nobody. And they're all going to agree with me and say, you're nobody. Because you should have done this and you should have done that and you should have been smart. You should have sucked up to the boss and done this. You should have been a better prostitute. You should have sucked his dick a little bit harder so that you got the part, so that you made the cut. That's prostitution. I'm doing a job I don't like with people I don't respect so that I can get money. That's prostitution. And a majority of us are prostitutes a majority of the time. I'm not going to tell the truth to my spouse because they might retaliate. They don't want to hear the truth, first of all. They don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear this. And I'm in their life getting the benefits, such as they are, of their presence, of their body, their bank account, whatever. I'm in their life because I meet a need of theirs if I perform in this way. And that's the only reason I'm in their life. And if I don't meet that need to make them look good, to help them cheat on their taxes, to help them pull off the heist, to help them make the sale, to tell their mother that they've made it, whatever it is, whatever the agenda is, if I don't meet that agenda so that the nags and criticism in their life goes up Oh, you married a bum. Why didn't you marry that successful person over there? Why didn't you do this? If I don't meet that agenda and instead cause more criticism, fewer sales, then I'm out of there. And I know it. I have no value. My performance, what I bring to the relationship, has value. My contacts, my family name, this has value. But nothing. And when we put this to the test in a culture riddled with scarcity, the ending is the same. We're kicked out. You got the job because you brought in these contacts and this and this and this. Now we've used you for that, and you're not bringing in any more. So you're out. I wanted to have the experience of having sex with your body. So I did this and this and this. You've done that, and now I'm interested in something else. So you're out. It's not about you. It's about what I can get for me. Now, this self-absorption, this narcissism of a child and adolescent, is a direct byproduct of incompetence, which leads directly to being under this line. There isn't enough. I don't have enough love. I don't have enough respect. I don't have enough self-esteem. I don't have enough security and survival to focus on my authentic self. I'm below the line. And so I'm using my own resources. I'm using my body, my money, my choices to seduce, to manipulate my pimps, the people who can give me what I want. I'm trying to make them feel better or be frightened of me, depends on the protocol. Fight, flight, freeze, and please are the protocols of a reptile. They are the protocols of a reptilian brain. They are a protocol of an operating system that is in fear based on scarcity. So we're in pain, we're in scarcity, because if there's no scarcity, there's no pain. I and everyone I care about is alive. No pain around that. I and everyone I care about is secure in their aliveness. No pain around that. I am experiencing high levels of love and belonging in all of me, in all areas of my life. Where's the pain? It's not there. The pain is, I want that, but it's not happening. That's the pain. I have ideals, values, and I respect how well I integrate with those. I'm an integrated person with integrity. Integrity, integrated. I have integrity and I like it. I like who I am. No pain there. I know what my talents are, and I'm really good at them. Feel any pain? I'm really good at these things. I love it. I'm good at it, and I know what it is. Where's the pain? It isn't there because you've met the need. These are not preferences. These are needs. Like oxygen, like water. I want to drink, but I'm in the desert. That's pain. I want to drink and you're surrounded by 30 glasses of all your favorite drinks. There's no pain there. I want to drink here. No pain. I know what my skills are and I'm good at them. No pain. I'm skilled at bringing my gifts to my community and creating value. Now, in a capitalist framework, if you're highly talented and you bring a lot of value to someone, In a capitalist framework, you get paid a lot of money. You get treated with a fair amount of dignity and respect. You get competed. Come and do my job. Come and do this. No, please come work for me. If you want a Michelin chef with 3 stars or whatever it is, you don't get some McDonald's person in there. Here, I'll give you a couple of bucks. Come over to my place. No, you've got billionaires. Come to my casino. No, come to my casino. Come to my casino. You get courted. And you get paid a lot of money in a cult that tells you that you're very valuable if you have a lot of money, and you have no value if you don't have any money. So you even get surreptitious value. You know how to bring your talents and gifts to the world in a way that creates abundance for them and for you. Where's the pain? I love doing this. I'm good at it. I've got one of the best jobs in the world at doing this. And I'm making a ton of money in a cult that values money more than human beings. No pain there. And you might say, well, it would be nice if I was valued as a human being first. But, given the reptilian nature of things, well, it's certainly better than not being valued and not having your talent appreciated. So there's no pain there. And feeling so satisfied in your survival, security, love, and belonging, having so many friends that you naturally start thinking about esoterics, about ideals, about how to contribute, how to leave a legacy. No pain there. I'm thinking about who I am beyond just this physical body. And I'm meditating, and I'm doing this, and I'm giving to my community, I'm watching other people grow. I'm part of something bigger than myself. Planting trees, I'm doing this. There's no pain there. Now, someone who's not in any pain, who's in high levels of abundance, around money, around love, around needs, around health, that ties in with physical survival and security of survival. If your health is shot, you don't have security of survival. You're at level 2 in your hierarchy of human needs. But if you've got all that, can you imagine being a prostitute? You're like, gosh, I can't stand that person, but I need to talk to their uncle so that I can get a break. I need a break. So what do I have to say and what do I have to do to get this person who I don't like and who wouldn't like the authentic me, to get them to like me enough or fear me enough so that they will do what they don't necessarily want to do either to get something from me that they need? What do I have to do? I mean, can you imagine doing that from that position? It's such a joke. It's like, no, I'm worried about, the other things and my contribution to the world. I'm not going to prostitute myself, make myself interesting when I'm enjoying my solitude, say something witty when I don't feel like talking at the moment. Well, you didn't get the sale. You didn't feel like talking. Oh, that was smart. It's stupid from a place of scarcity, right? Scarcity leads directly to prostitution. Prostitution of thoughts, prostitution of fears, prostitution of ideas, prostitution of, body. And to get this tit job done, right? Because I want this type of person to want me, and they won't like me as I am. I need it because I'm not good enough on my own, right? I need a tit job. I need a nose job. I need the best barber around. I've got to compete. Why? You got all the love and belonging you want. You got all the security, survival. You're busy focused on your legacy. Why do you need to be rushing around in fear, trying to be something for other people? It's boring. Nobody does it who's in a place of abundance. Now, the fact that everyone is rushing around, whether it's nails done or this and that and the other, or this or all these different things, sports cars, I want a louder engine, $300,000 noise, attention drawing, Maserati, whatever. What? Why? I mean, some of this is, can just be, it's fun. It's fun. Why not? But wearing a 3-piece business suit in the desert to look good? Going into politics where half the people are going to hate you no matter what you say? This is for, this is a good time? Just because you could, do something there? I mean, there's a tremendous amount of each of our days that is not coming from what would be the most fulfilling form of self-expression here. I'd love to do this. I'd like to help these people, give this to this, do this, make this happen. How much of our lives are lived that way? Well, we're really, as a culture, we're hovering survival, security, love and belonging, and self-esteem with some awareness of gifts. We're at about a 1 relative to true potential. We're about 3, 2, 3 as a general culture relative to what the pain we're aware of. See, because as pain gets really high, we take anesthetics. Rumination, drinking, sugar, pornography. We take anesthetics to numb the edge of the pain because we don't know how to solve the pain. But we're still aware, even at a numb level, of, gee, I'm in pain. We're about a 1 of, where we could be. We're about 2 or 3 to where, if we were, the rest of the way to a 10, where we wouldn't, if we could just go up 7 more points, we wouldn't be in pain. We might be in bliss, actually, around 6 or 7. If we could just get double or triple where we're at, get it to a 7 or 9, we wouldn't feel, if that was safe, if we knew how we got there and it was stable, we wouldn't feel like prostitutes, where I gotta do this. You don't understand. My husband only married me because of this and this. If I don't do this and this, and all this. So we're at a low level of meeting needs. And because we're below scarcity, so we're below scarcity, we look on the news, we see nothing but trauma. 90% of all news is trauma. The brain is not dumb. We may say, oh, that would never happen to us. Well, how many of the people being traumatized on TV, at 5 years old said, oh, I'm going to end up like that? No. The very nature of trauma is it's surprising, right? So the brain is not fooled by our delusions that this could never happen to us. When we see other people being abused, we understand we are in an environment where there is a chance that we could be abused. And when we see it not going very well, meaning people just keep eating pizza, and nobody responds to the abuse, we understand that we're surrounded by reptiles. When Dad takes another sip of Coke and eats another slice of pizza after listening on the news that a girl has been raped and is now homeless, and not a single person at the table gets up to make a phone call, say, how could we help this girl? The message is very clear. You live in a reptilian cult where if you or your daughter is raped and you're homeless, there will be millions of sociopaths sitting around getting fat, watching your tragedy, and not one of them is going to pick up the phone. Feel all warm and fuzzy inside, like, oh, I can't wait to be in need, meaning it's almost certain, I watch it every single day, people are in trauma and in need, and trauma and in need, and trauma and in need. I can't wait for that to be me. when not a single person picks up the phone and says, "How can I help?" So we understand how deeply alone we are when something horrible starts to unfold in our lives, because we understand that if it makes it to the news, that millions of people, just like our own family, will watch it and say, "Oh, tut, 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 tut," and won't do anything about it. It is the training of a reptile to watch torture at high levels of other human beings and do nothing to respond is the training of a sociopath. And that's, if you look at the news every day and you never make a phone call to do anything about it, you are reminding yourself and anyone who watches you that you are interested in other people's pain, but lack the competency, the humanity to do anything about it. So why would you feel relaxed after understanding that you are surrounded by people in a reptilian state? So the reptilian brain, fight that which is smaller than you and that which you can win. Run, flight from what is bigger than you, and if you engage in combat, it will win. Freeze or hide, if either of those options are not available. Or fawn, or please, or ass lick, if someone in power needs something and shows some willingness to do a quid pro quo, where you'll be indispensable to them as they gain more and more power, and they will take you along with them as they climb the ranking system of the cult. So those are all the protocols of a sociopath, of a traumatized person, of an alligator brain, of a human animal in fear and in pain. And they are the majority of how and why we do things in this cult today. Oh, you shouldn't have upset the boss. What I said was true. It doesn't matter. Fool, right? This is a scarce environment. The boss has the power. They could give that job to somebody else. But I'm very good at it. It doesn't matter. The boss doesn't care about you. The boss cares about whether you make them look good, and you shouldn't have said that because it didn't make them look good. Oh, I see. We're trading authenticity out of fear in a scarce environment. Because if you said, well, there's millions of bosses who are desperate for talented people like you, and they're all adults, and so they will appreciate your candor and respect for the truth, and even if you lose your job, you'll be just fine because you're surrounded by empathic people who like authenticity. What's the problem? You nuts? We're not in that world. We're in a world of scarcity. So as long as there is scarcity, or as long as we're below this line here, as long as we're somewhere down here, there will be pain. With pain comes the fear of pain. With the fear of pain comes prostitution, fight, flight, freeze, and please. With prostitution, inauthenticity, competition to be the best prostitute. Let's see what you'll do for my money. Let's see what you'll do to get in my movie. Let's see what you'll do. Let's see what you'll do. Let's have a competition, right? I'm the alpha crocodile, and you better satisfy my needs, or I'll use my power against you rather than to help you. So this is reptilian thinking. Now, reptilian thinking and reptilian behavior is all about competition. So I have a big competition in this whole arena. It's all about competition. Competition to run the fastest. Competition to fight the hardest. Competition to please the best. Competition to hide the best. Remember, if there's a predator and 20 people are hiding, the predator wants to rape someone or eat something or whatever, you don't have to be the best at hiding. You just have to be not the worst. The predator just needs to find someone else. If you're running from a predator, you don't have to be the fastest. You just have to be a little faster than the person who's behind you, because a tiger will pick off the stragglers. So competition is the protocol of tension and power dynamics that one deals with in a scarce environment where one's needs are not met with certainty. So you compete, you compete, you compete, you compete, you compete. And since everyone's competing, if you don't compete, you lag behind. And if you lag behind, you don't get chosen. If you don't get chosen, then there isn't enough pie for you. Not enough pie. There were 7 pieces. There's 9 people. So if you don't get a piece in the first 7 chances to get a pie, you don't get any. The 8th and the 9th person don't get a piece of pie. Well, that's built into scarcity. Competition and scarcity go hand in hand. Because if there's 11 pieces of pie and there's only 9 people, there's no competition here. Have some first. No, you have some. You have some. Okay, well, we'll all have some. Anyone want seconds? Here, nah. There are big pieces. It's all that I want. I had all that I wanted. I couldn't eat anything more if I wanted to, right? There's no need to compete over that. By the way, there's another 200 pies sitting in the larder. You still want to compete? And we've got thousands of bags of grain and sugar and milk and all that. We can make more many pies as we want. I'm not interested in pie today. I can have it any time I want, right? There's no need to compete. It's absurd. It is unintelligent to expend energy, to leverage for power, to ass-lick, to run to get the shortest, if your needs are met abundantly. So when you have a scarcity of needs, you always have competition. When you have competition, you're dealing with the reptilian brain. Fight, flight, freeze, and please. Now, what is scarcity symptomatic of? So we have 9 people who want a piece of pie. We only have 7 pieces of pie. What is that symptomatic of? What's the symptom that's being expressed by there being too little pie for the people who want pie? Incompetence. Because are you telling me that of all the billion life-affirming planets in the multiverse, there isn't enough energy anywhere for an extra pie to be made? Well, we ran out of flour. So how did that happen? Because you were competent and you knew how to plant flour and you knew how to thresh it and you knew how to grind it and you knew that we needed more flour, but you just couldn't grow it? Well, we couldn't predict the weather. So what is that? That's incompetence. If you could predict the weather, if you could terraform other planets, if you could genetically engineer the wheat, if you could grow more crops, if you could bake more, if you had more time management skills, somebody on this planet or any other planet somewhere in the multiverse could have come up with an extra pie. You mean to say that you two showed up at the last minute? Meaning you were asked to RSVP 3 weeks ago, but you didn't. In the entire millions of moments from 3 weeks ago to today, you never RSVP'd, but you just showed up unexpectedly. And we're surprised that there wasn't pie? And that's competence? It's not competence. There's a gap of competence. So anytime there is scarcity in a universe filled with massive amounts of energy, I mean, we haven't sorted out fusion yet. What is that? A lack of competency. There's nothing shameful about it. Let's just be real that 1,000 years from now, if humans are on this planet, we will know how to do so many things that we don't know how to do today. And what are those things? Competencies, knowledges, skills. So we don't have a certain amount of knowledge and skill and competency. Therefore, we cannot produce what we need abundantly. Therefore, there is pain and the awareness of pain. Therefore, there is fear of pain and the awareness of fear. And therefore, there is competition for what? Scarce resources. But here's the thing. Competition leads to competence. If you play 50 football matches against 50 against 50 other teams, you will be better at football. If your skull isn't shattered, you'll be better at football at the end of the competition. Of 50 competitions, you will be a better player than you were when you began. So this is life's initial algorithm. So the very fact that we have scarcity directly links to incompetency. The very fact that we have incompetency and scarcity directly leads to competition. Competition to become more competent at securing the scarce resource. This is the most beautiful girl in the school. Well, I'm going to seduce her this way. Well, I'm going to seduce her that way. Well, I'm going to seduce her this way. And what? The most competent person succeeds at obtaining a scarce resource. There's only one vice presidency open this year. 200 people in the firm want it. I'm going to do this for the boss's wife. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. There's a competition to obtain a scarce resource that leads to fight, flight, freeze, and fawn as a driving protocol to get the scarce resource. I want it for me, which in a scarce environment means you can't have it. Now, in an abundant environment, you want a vice president? Fine, have one. I want one too. I'll take this one, you take that one. In an abundant framework, there isn't a company? Well, let's just start a company, and then you can be a vice president in that company. I don't know how to start a company. Well, grow your competency. Figure it out. Become competent. Read some books. Then you can be a vice president there, and I'll be a vice president here. So competency leads to abundance. Competition leads to competency, and competency leads to abundance. That's why we've got an inexorable force pushing us, evolutionary, in this direction. We're going from scarcity and pain. Now, the other thing is, the more scarce something is, the more painful is the scarcity. The more painful is the scarcity, the more motivated people are out of fear and then drive to fulfill the scarcity. So if something is very scarce, it creates a lot of pain if it's an important thing. And the pain creates a lot of awareness, and the awareness creates a lot of competency. And the competency creates less scarcity. That's how evolution works. So it always moves up. Now, right at this point where you have abundance, the reptilian brain is not necessary. The prostitute is not necessary. The adaptive personality is not necessary. Lying is not necessary. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn is not necessary. Number one, it's not necessary. Number two, it is not advantageous. It's not necessary and it's not advantageous. Why? Reptiles don't have a good time. Oh, sure, if you're a reptile, winning is better than losing. But the win-lose game is not as fun as the win-win game. Now, you don't know that as a reptile because you're a reptile, and reptiles are dissociated from love. They're dissociated from their own empathic brain. So if you're dissociated from your own empathic brain, you don't know what love is. So you certainly can't realize that it's more fun than fear and pain. But once you discover, oh my goodness, this is so much more fun than fear and pain. There's all this fear and pain that's not fun. But I was scared and I won. Yeah, that's more fun than being scared and losing. But it's not as fun as being abundant and winning together and loving. Now that's fun. So we all want to feel better and we want to avoid feeling chronically worse. So when we discover that it's more fun to synergize and to love and to co-create, we do it. When we discover it's more fun to synergize and co-create, we do it. Why? Because it's our nature to seek to feel better sustainably. And love and partnership and synergy does feel better sustainably. So it's an inevitable trend. It's just a matter of how competent does a cult, does a species have to become before everyone in the vicinity has an abundance of their survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, development of their gifts and abilities, and bringing, they know develop their talents strongly. They're bringing abundance and they become part of something bigger than themselves. If you are in a cult where everyone has met those 7 needs, you're in a level of abundance that is massively fun, not very painful, and so not very scary. It's massively fun, not very painful, not very scary. And you don't feel like being a prostitute anymore. You don't feel like ass licking. I'm not going to do this for you any longer because I don't need to. I have other options of meeting my needs other than to lie and pretend that I like doing this and this when I don't, other than to do a job that I hate. I have abundance. So this is a tremendously pivotal, it's a tremendously pivotal moment in life and well-being to have abundance. So competency leads to abundance. And at a certain point on the competence gradient, everyone in the circle has all of their human needs met. Not preferences, these are needs. We need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We need love and belonging. We need oxygen. We need water. We need self-esteem. So these are our needs. So we've learned to meet them, basically. And so now we don't depend on other people to meet them as much. But obviously, if you collaborate and synergize with other people, you meet them a lot more. So this is where we hit at the competence level. Now, once you go above abundance, now you're just getting more and more abundance, higher and higher levels of need, fulfillment, and preference. Now, here's the thing that happens. You no longer need to compete because there's already too much. It'd be ridiculous. I'll race you to the larder to get the last piece of pie. It's ridiculous when there's 200 pies in the larder that you couldn't give away if you wanted to because everyone's got 200 pies. It's ridiculous. So there's no race to the larder, and no one goes without a piece of pie. When every member of the cult has the competency to love and be loved reliably at a high level, where's the jealousy and envy? That woman loves her husband so much better than my wife, my girlfriend. Wish my girlfriend would look at me like that and do this and I bet she's so good in bed, right? She listened to what he said. My goodness, she didn't interrupt. Oh, my goodness, I wish in a scarcity mentality of low competence, you have a minority of people who have at least the appearance of a certain amount of abundance that they got from competition, and they're afraid of losing it because they're constantly surrounded by people that don't have it. I want it. He's got it, and I don't. How am I going to undermine him? I'm going to, let's see. I know, I'm going to get a, he's got a Mercedes. I'm going to get a Maserati, right? I'm going to get that. And he did that little, I'm going to do a bigger edition. I'm going to make her wish that he doesn't have as much as me. I've got this thing over here, right? And then I'll have what he has in scarce supply. Well, when you have highly competent lovers, highly competent conversationalists, highly competent sensualists in abundance, more than anyone knows what to do with, you may discover you enjoy a little bit of solitude because you're coming from a place of abundance. I can have it anytime I want. So let's learn what's unique about me in this situation as opposed to, I don't want to be left out. I don't want to be looked down on and not be the ones who have not. The haves, the have not, right? I don't want to be that. I don't want to be pitied. I don't want to. Well, how can you be pitied if you have abundant fulfillment of everything you need? So at a certain point of competence, if we realize that the problem is not a scarcity of energy, there is no problem with the amount of energy available in the universe. If there is a problem with our incompetency to extract it and transform it into a form that we long for, but don't have yet the skill to create and co-create together. So that comes with competency, which comes with competition. So people will compete until they get competent enough to experience abundance. At which point, maybe they'll compete for fun or play or whatever, but it's, you can't take a race to the larder seriously when you've both got more food than you could possibly imagine. It's ridiculous. So, but it's not ridiculous to race for a single piece of pie that has rank in a cult that will rank the winner more than the loser, the pie more than the not pie, when you're hungry. It is intelligent to compete. But what do you get from competing? You get competence. You learn to run faster. And the person who loses and loses fumes about this, right? I'm going to figure out a way. This time I'm going to get the pie. So what do? They get better at the game. They buy better shoes, they practice running, and then the next time they win the thing. Now you have two faster runners, two faster thinkers, because they strategized. You have two faster thinkers, two faster runners. Well, competency grows and grows and grows and grows, and it is passed down. You teach what you learned, and then the next generation takes it further until one day, there's enough pie for everyone in the circle. And then another day, there's too much pie. And that's about the time when you start looking at other things. Well, what could we look at that we haven't yet created? We've created transcendent sexual orgasms. Maybe we can create transcendent sexual orgasms with 3 people and no diseases. If that's what people desire and don't have, then they will start practicing getting competent at creating that. And if they create it and they discover it wonderful for some reason, then they'll create more until there's so much that there's no sense of envy and scarcity around that. If they create it and say, yeah, too many people to focus on. I'm more of a one-on-one person. Well, then you have even more abundance, right? It's even easier to create that. So it always moves towards competency, moves towards abundance. Abundance dictates a new operating system. Because fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are all less pleasurable than authentic behavior, than spontaneous authentic behavior. They're all less pleasurable. Running for fear of getting caught is not as fun as saying, hey, I'll do this because I feel like it. Try it. I'm trying to get away from the IRS, what if they find out this? It's not as fun as saying, I'd like to go talk with that interesting author. Okay, they're busy right at the moment. Why don't I interact with their hologram? Their simulation. Because I don't need to take up the actual author's time. I want to talk with a simulation that's so good that I can grow in the same way as whether it was the actual person. Well, once competency reaches a certain level, we will have that. The simulations may evolve faster than the person at a high level of competency. The person may say, I want to go talk to my simulation who's been talking with more interesting people than I have been. And so my simulation has been growing more rapidly and intensely than I am. I want to talk to my simulation who's been doing all this stuff while I've been cleaning house. My simulation didn't need to clean house in this. I did. I had to eat in this. My simulation didn't. My simulation has had conversations I would like to have. I'm going to put on, okay, I want to enter that conversation and say, oh my goodness, I want to learn from my simulation. And then the best bits of my let's share them. We've got 100 simulations of me because that's about what the demand is. At any given moment of time, if there's less than 100 of me, given all the people that want to talk to me, there won't be enough me. So we've got 100 simulations. They're all evolving with slightly different experiences differently. But let's upload to the same database and have an algorithm that filters out things that each simulation shares with the other simulations because they say, this was hot stuff. I just grew leaps and bounds, says this simulation, because I just talked with Einstein and his simulation. The simulation that knows more than the original Einstein does because it's been evolving over the last 100 years. I just talked with that, and I saw something I had no idea. You guys, you brothers and sisters, simulations, you're going to love this. I upload that, and upload that, and upload that. The other simulations can dabble in that and say, yeah, not for me. I'll go with this one. I'll go with this one. So you have an iterative pattern of identity evolving. So does it matter who's the real one? Is there a scarcity? I really want to talk with Einstein. Here he is. In fact, which Einstein would you like to talk with? The one that went off and discovered, remember Einstein, at this point he was debating this, and Einstein went this way. But his simulation, he's gone this way. This is a probable Einstein. Was the probable Einstein not important? No, the probable Einstein discovered a unified theory that the actual Einstein historically didn't discover. Oh, I see. Do you want to talk to the actual Einstein or the probable one who discovered the unified theory? I want the one with the unified. I don't care if it's actual or not. I mean, it feels the same, tastes the same, sounds the same. Why? Because the technology is good enough. Your competency to create the technology is good enough. After what, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, 10,000 years, 100 years, 50 years? The technology is good enough that you can't tell the difference. So are you a purist? I will not eat tofu, only wild-caught boar. I will not eat, I will not put in a synthetic limb, only a pure limb that was never fractured. That's the only one for me. I'll go to my grave hobbling rather than put in a metal pin. I just want to live. I want to grow. I want to feel good. I want to live. I want to grow. I want to feel good. And if I can do that with this sim or this, I don't care. I'm not a purist because I'm what? Intelligent. Rather be authentically suffering, right? Go ahead. See how long you choose that. If anyone looks at you suffering and says, oh, I want to learn about that, the authentic suffering, that's what I want to deal with, they can go talk to you. And the sims that do something different, the probable selves that go off in this way and this way and this way, that are learning all kinds of interesting things that people want to talk about, well, those people can talk to those people, those probable selves. So we're talking about competency here. I really want to talk with this YouTuber. But there's only one, and he's got 470,000 subscribers, and they're all talking about this, and he's got to edit his video. He's scarce. He'd love to talk, but he don't have the time. Okay. Do it in virtual reality. Speed up time 1,000 times. You don't think the brain can go 1,000 times faster? How about dreams, where 1 hour you live a lifetime? We're talking competency. Chemical transformations in consciousness that speed up life 1,000 times. Why not load up a program in alternate reality together? Do a 10-year relationship in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Understand it, appreciate it. Press loving, healthy clothes, and I have all the time in the world. I've already talked with all the people I want to talk with. Let's slow it down and enjoy with my favorite people this. We're talking massive amounts of competency here. Beautiful levels of competency. Abundance of intelligence. Abundance of freedom. Abundance of time. Abundance of need fulfillment, pleasure fulfillment, joy fulfillment. We're talking abundance like you cannot even imagine today in a world of fear, pain, and scarcity. Now, if we look at what's going on here in this kind of journey up to abundance and then on to abundance, and perhaps now you can see why I say we're at about 1 out of 10. In our possibility field. What's going on here? Well, Belief is certainly one thing. Competency is certainly, another thing. The reptilian brain creates a lot of suffering because it is survival, and winning and losing are big deals for the reptilian brain. But the new operating system that comes post-abundance. Now, this is really important. Peter Diamandis and others, I'm just saying that because I don't remember the author, because we don't have I don't have a competent enough memory, and we don't have a microchip inserted at the moment where the memory would be digitally enhanced to a point where these things would just pop in and I could see the book that I'm seeing. So in abundance, the future is better than we think. What Diamandis and I'll just say others have been looking at is the plummeting price of resources, power. The cost of power is going down. The cost of energy is going down. Electricity, etc., is going down. The amount of information is going up. The cost of education is going down. The cost of computer chips is going down. We're generating technologies to turn seawater into water. We are in an abundance framework. We have more energy around us than we can ever possibly imagine what to do with. And the cost of utilizing those energies is going down. And the technology, the skill of utilizing those energies is going up. So at some point in that downward cost threshold, we hit the competence level where we reach the abundance threshold, to where it no longer makes sense to compete, which is the same moment when the reptilian brain of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn has outlived its usefulness. This is a huge change into a new brain, because we have the reptilian brain here with competition, and we have the empathic brain here with collaboration. And that is pivotal. Synergy, collaboration, creativity. It is such a big deal. We're talking about exponential increases in intelligence. Intelligence is measured as the efficiency with which energy, time, money, and natural resources, is transformed into sustainable well-being, which is obtained by fulfilling one's needs and preferences. Sustainable well-being is developing the competency to fulfill one's needs and preferences as an individual, then as a family, then as a community, then as a culture, then as a species. That's the cycle of competency. And we'll draw it over here because it's going above the screen. This ever-expanding circle is an expansion of competency and an expansion of synergy. Now, why? Why does it have to ripple out? Well, if you're surrounded by people who are in scarcity and fear and pain and trauma, they are not in a collaborative state. They are in a state of pain, fear, with the message that there is not enough. When you are in high levels of pain, with the message there is not enough for you, you move into competition through the sociopathic brain that will do anything at all. Rape, murder, killing, stealing, you name it, extortion. The sociopathic brain will do anything at all to meet its needs, to reduce its pain. And if you don't want to be raped, hijacked, ransomed, murdered, manipulated, you have one choice, which is to participate in the creation of superabundance for everyone in your field. Because I guarantee you that when there is superabundance of everyone around you, they're having too much fun, having fun abundantly, than they are to miserably plan to plot your demise. You see, revenge is fun when you're down here and you can't get out. And the reason, why can't you get out? You're down here in misery and despair and bitterness. Why can't you get out? Because you're incompetent. Because the people around you are incompetent. Because you're in an incompetent cult. That's why you can't get out. Now, if you are down here in misery, and your perpetrator is up here, a little higher in the rank, they're in their own misery, of course, or they wouldn't be a perpetrator. It's not fun to violate people. I think it's fun. It's miserable compared to joyful collaboration. So they're up here, a little bit higher. And they're sociopathic, of course, because you're both in scarcity. They're in scarcity, you're in scarcity, they're sociopathic, you're sociopathic. So you don't want them to be above you. So revenge is about trying to pull them down. I can't get up here. And even if I do, I don't trust the sociopaths around me to let me stay up there. They're going to knock me down. So I can't get up and stay here. But I can pull you down here. That's revenge. And it feels great. Compared to helplessly watching your abuser at a higher state not take responsibility for knocking you down, lying, cheating, etc. So it feels great to have revenge relative to you being alone and isolated in this lower state and not being able to do anything. So revenge is always targeted at people who are higher up in the fulfillment pattern of needs, with stuck people who are down here, when no one is helping them and they feel helpless. You want to end the war on terror? It's perfectly simple. Give rice, clothing, education, opportunity, and freedom to more people on the planet. They will not hate you for it. They will not commit suicide. Oh, I've got a great education, a lovely little girl, wife that's I love having sex with, wonderful prospects. Nah, I don't want that. I want to train in a dogmatic cult about how to kill myself and other people. It doesn't feel very good, does it? But feels better than being tormented, having drone bombs dropped on you by cowards in another cult who bomb apartment complexes by drone, invading your country, ruining your life, murdering your daughter. You want to go get some revenge for them? Oh, yeah. So it's revenge feels great if the only alternative is enduring oppression in a state of pain. Revenge feels terrible if the alternative is joyful abundance, competence, and meeting one's needs way up here. So if you want to live in a cult, in a community where people are not being shot up or raped or hijacked or stolen from, all you have to do is develop enough competence to create a team of competent people that lift the well-being, that teach that competence and lift the well-being in that region of the species, and ultimately in the whole species. And that is inevitable. Either we destroy ourselves and start regroup, and that takes another billion years ago or so, and we just come back after some hundreds of thousands or billions of years, and it just gets reworked out then, depending on how far we set ourselves back, or we figure it out in the next 1,000 years, how to create superabundance for every person, so that no one's trying to undermine the technology that creates the superabundance because they've got access to it. You share opportunity and access, and then people don't destroy the system. You create inequality, and people will always attack the system that leads to them not having. Well, that always is a path of violation. So to get to empathy and collaboration, you cannot leave people behind. You cannot leave homeless people out there. Well, they're homeless, they don't count. Sure they do. They spread disease. They're going to undermine your system if you don't include them. That's life. Nothing personal about them. You would do the same thing. If a bunch of idiots thought that because you had lost your house taking care of your husband's medical expenses, and therefore shouldn't be included in the family circle of abundance, you'd realize they're a bunch of fucked up assholes. And you'd probably communicate that in some way that undermined some of their arrogance. Well, that's how it works. It's always worked that way. If you want to move into the empathic center of the brain, you cannot leave anyone behind. You cannot exclude people. And this is the fragile thing, because we're at a point where certain people can take off into high levels of need in certain arenas, but they don't have the competency and resources to take others with them. Other people don't have the competence and resource to join them. So we're really in a state of a massive crisis of competency, where we have more food than is needed to feed everyone on the planet, where we have more land and resources to house everyone on the planet. We have so much access to energy, but we lack the competence in distribution, in empathy, to transcend our own reptilian brain in a traumatized state and enter this new field of abundance. The fruits of empathically connecting with synergy, however, the fruits of empathically connecting with synergy are so incredible. We're talking a 10x improvement of well-being, number one. Number two, when you don't leave people behind, you do not need to invest in military. If you just took the military budget and said, we are going to take everyone this year, are going to take every billion normally spent on the military, and we are going to go step by step as a species and make sure that every single person has a safe, legal place to sleep anywhere on the planet. That's our commitment as a species. Every single person has access to healthy, organic food in abundance. Got plenty of it. We're plowing it under the ground. Every person is going to have medicine. We're not going to do stupid things like take an unconscious person and spend $300,000 prolonging their life. We don't yet have the competence for that level of extravagance or cruelty, depending on how you look at it. But we're not going to have blind kids because they lacked a $6 cataracts operation and things like that. We are going to attend to the medical needs of human beings. We're going to teach love and belonging in every school in the country. From the best people, we're going to do it scientifically. We're going to see what does it take for people to feel loved and that they belong. We'll keep experimenting it until we have protocols that have a 95% success rate of making the people in those cults feel loved and belonged. When 90% of them say voluntarily on their app that they feel love and belonging 7 or 10, we'll say, okay, it's time to work on self-esteem. We'll work on that. We'll figure out the gifts of every single person on the planet. You're good at this. You're good at this. And we'll publish those gifts. You're the best parent. You're the best this. You're fabulous at this. You're a 9.7 skier. You're this. We'll publish a database in every language. And we'll make teams doable. This is an explosion of intelligence and abundance.